Imagine a lone swordsman sitting quietly in the dim light of a fading day. His hair is gray with age, his hands weathered by decades of conflict and discipline. He sits alone deep in thought as evening shadows gather around him. This is Miyamoto Musashi in the final week of his life, reflecting on all he has learned. With a calm breath and a steady hand, he writes down 21 principles on a scroll of parchment. These are his last gifts to the world, gentle guiding lights distilled from a lifetime of trial, triumph, loss, and wisdom. He calls this list Dokudo, the path of walking alone. But these principles are not about isolation or loneliness. They're about walking your own path with integrity and understanding, even when you must walk it alone. In this moment, Musashi is not a fierce warrior, but a humble teacher offering the essence of what brought him peace. As the ink dries on each line, we are invited to sit beside him in spirit, to listen and reflect on the quiet truths he shares. The first truth Musashi offers is simple yet profound. Accept everything just the way it is. Let the weight of this instruction settle in your heart. Accept everything exactly as it is. On the surface, these words are simple, yet their meaning is deep. In life, we often fight against reality. We wish things were different. We resist what we cannot change. Musashi gently urges us to lay down that burden of resistance. When we truly accept the present moment, we release the tension of wishing it were otherwise. In acceptance, there is a softening inside us. Consider the relief that comes from accepting something beyond your control. It might be the pain of a lost love, the sting of an old betrayal, or the uncertainty of the future. Instead of replaying why or what if in our minds, we simply say, this is how it is right now. With that surrender, a calm understanding begins to replace the turmoil. Acceptance doesn't mean that we like everything that happens, nor that we stop trying to improve things. It means we stop denying or fighting the fact that some things are in this moment unchangeable. Musashi knew that resisting reality only brings suffering. Picture a stream flowing downhill, and if you place a large rock in its path, the water pushes and splashes against it, churning in turmoil. But if you remove the obstacle, the water flows freely and clear. In the same way, when we accept reality, we stop creating inner resistance. We allow our life to flow forward again gently and naturally. In a calm voice, the old samurai might remind us that life is ever-changing, and that no amount of anger or anxiety will alter what already is. Whether it's a sudden storm ruining our plans, or a door closing on a chapter of our lives, acceptance is the quiet path through the pain. By saying yes to the reality of now, we find a sliver of peace, a peace that gently cradles our hearts and says, this too is part of my story. I will face it, and I will be okay. And so, sitting with Musashi's first principle, we take a deep breath. We allow ourselves to simply be, and we allow the world to be what it is. Only from this ground of acceptance can we step forward without the weight of denial, frustration, or regret. Musashi's next guidance flows naturally from the first. Once we accept life as it is, we become less tempted by illusions of happiness. He tells us, do not seek pleasure for its own sake. In other words, do not make the pursuit of pleasure the guiding star of your life. It is not that pleasure is bad or that we must shun joy. Rather, Musashi warns that when we run after pleasure as our main goal, we can lose our way. Think of times when you indulged in a momentary delight, perhaps eating too much cake or spending hours on a mindless distraction only to feel empty or restless afterward. Chasing pleasure for its own sake is like drinking salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. True happiness, he suggests, is a byproduct of a meaningful life, not something to be hunted directly. Pleasure comes and goes like a breeze. If we build our lives only around seeking the next enjoyable sensation, we end up on an endless treadmill of craving, always wanting more, never truly content. Musashi himself experienced great victories and the luxuries that came with them, yet he understood that lasting fulfillment did not come from indulgence. Consider why we often seek pleasure. Sometimes we do it to escape pain or to fill an emptiness. We might use pleasure as a distraction from loneliness or anxiety, seeking comfort in food, in endless entertainment, or in new trinkets. But these kinds of pleasure are fleeting. They are like bandages on deeper wounds. When the excitement fades, the underlying loneliness or unease remains perhaps stronger than before. Musashi invites us to step off this cycle of craving and momentary satisfaction. Instead of being driven by the constant hunger for more comfort or excitement, we can let pleasure arise naturally from living well. When we commit to meaningful endeavors, whether it's learning a skill, helping others, creating something beautiful, or simply caring for our family, pleasure finds us in more enduring ways. It may not be a sudden rush, but rather a gentle sense of contentment, a quiet joy that comes from doing what matters. Imagine planting a garden. If you only crave the sweetness of fruit and spend all day eating sugar, you will make yourself ill. But if you till the soil, plant seeds, and patiently tend to them, you will not only savor the ripe fruit in time, but also find satisfaction in the tending. The sweetness of the harvest is real and wonderful, but it comes as the reward of caring for the garden, not from chasing sugar itself. So it is with life. Pursue a purpose, tend to your responsibilities and dreams, and let simple joys accompany you on that journey. Enjoy pleasures when they come, but do not cling to them or let the quest for them consume you. Have a delicious meal and savor every bite, but do so with gratitude rather than greed. Enjoy a beautiful sunset fully, but do not lament its passing. Appreciate that its beauty was a gift of that moment. By not making pleasure our master, we keep our freedom and our peace of mind. We discover that contentment blooms naturally when we live with intention and heart rather than desperately grasping for the next delight. The shallow highs of indulgence cannot compare to the deep fulfillment of a life lived meaningfully. A single cup of tea enjoyed slowly in peace can bring more true joy than a dozen hurried treats gulped down in pursuit of pleasure. In turning away from the endless chase, we find rest. Life offers plenty of sweetness when we stop grasping. Joy finds us in the quiet moments. We learn to find delight in the simple and the profound alike, without excess, without addiction, without the constant hunger for more. This is the quiet happiness Musashi wishes for us, a happiness that sits gently in the heart, steady and present, not one that must be constantly fed by new pleasures. Having tempered our pursuit of pleasures, Musashi next cautions us about how we make decisions. He writes, "Do not under any circumstances depend on a partial feeling." It's a formal way of saying, avoid acting on half-formed emotions or incomplete intuitions. In our daily life, feelings are important guides, but if they are only partially understood or fleeting, they can mislead us. Imagine you are angry at a friend or a partner in a heated moment. A sudden surge of emotion might tempt you to say hurtful words or make a drastic decision, but that anger is a partial feeling, an intense but temporary storm. If you depend on that momentary anger to guide your actions, you might damage a relationship or do something you later regret. Musashi's advice is to pause and seek clarity. Do not act in the heat of an incomplete emotion. A partial feeling could be any emotion or impulse that hasn't settled into clear insight. It might be excitement that hasn't been tempered with reason, or fear that isn't fully understood. When we depend on such feelings, we risk making choices that don't align with our true intentions or the fuller reality of the situation. It's like trying to navigate by a flickering light. You might see glimpses, but not the whole path. Musashi is not telling us to ignore our feelings. Instead, he is telling us to know them fully before letting them lead us. This is a call for patience and self-awareness. If you feel unsure if something in your heart is only half certain, wait, listen more deeply. Give yourself time to let the emotion pass or clarify. If an intuition strikes, examine it from a place of calm to see if it's pointing to something true or if it's just a passing whim. In modern life, this principle might mean don't make life-changing decisions on a whim or when you are emotionally volatile. For instance, do not quit your job in a burst of frustration without carefully considering your plan, just as you should not profess love or make commitments in a rush of infatuation without understanding if it's real and lasting. Strong feelings can be wonderful and important, but give them time to breathe so you can see their true shape. Consider a cloudy glass of water. If you keep stirring it, it stays murky. But if you set it down for a while, the sediment settles and the water becomes clear. Our minds are similar. When emotions swirl inside us, our mind becomes clouded. If we act while the water is still cloudy, depending on a partial unsettled feeling, we may stumble. But if we pause, breathe, and let the mind settle, clarity emerges. Then we can see what our true heart and reasoning mind both say. That is when action is most effective and wise. Musashi's own life was full of split-second decisions in duels, but even then his actions sprang from a lifetime of training and a calm mind, not from panic or rashness. He learned to remain centered and not let a flash of fear or anger dictate his sword. In the quieter battles of our lives, an argument, a big career choice, a temptation, we can practice the same calm. Before deciding, ask, am I seeing this whole situation clearly, or am I carried by a single surge of feeling? If there is any doubt that your emotion might be incomplete or misleading, wait. Revisit the decision when you are calm. Talk to someone you trust, or simply give yourself a night's rest. Often, you will find that what felt absolutely right or wrong in a heated moment looks different in the morning light. By not depending on partial feelings, we cultivate a steady heart and mind. We learn to trust the deeper currents within us, not just the small waves on the surface. That way, when we do act, we act with our whole being fully committed without hesitation or regret. Musashi wants us to move through life with surety and thoughtfulness, rather than being tossed around by every passing mood. This principle ultimately is about clarity. It encourages us to find a calm, clear understanding before we leap. In that clarity, our actions become powerful and true, and we find we have fewer regrets because we didn't act rashly. Musashi's wisdom here is the wisdom of patience. Wait for the whole feeling, the complete picture before you trust it to guide your path. As we gain clarity and calm in our emotions, Musashi shifts our attention to perspective. He encourages us, think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. These words invite us to practice humility and curiosity. To think lightly of oneself means not to be too wrapped up in our own importance, not to carry the weight of our ego everywhere. To think deeply of the world means to appreciate the vastness beyond our own experience. To be mindful of others and the broader context of life. Often we carry our identity and our problems like a heavy cloak. We might constantly think my success, my failure, my feelings, my life. This can become a prison of self. Musashi's advice is to loosen that fixation. Think lightly of yourself. Hold your sense of self gently with a touch of humor even. Recognize that you are just one part of a much larger tapestry. This is not to diminish your worth, but to ease the constant pressure of self-concern. When we take ourselves too seriously, every setback can feel like the end of the world, and every success can inflate us beyond reason. But when we think of ourselves lightly, we become free to learn, to fail to laugh at our mistakes, and to carry on without the crushing weight of pride or shame. It becomes easier to apologize, to forgive ourselves, and to adapt because we see that we are human, perfectly imperfect, and not the center of all things. At the same time, thinking deeply of the world invites us to look beyond our own immediate concerns. It reminds us to observe others, to understand nature, to contemplate the lessons that the world continually offers. Musashi asks us to be like a student of life, always looking outward with a sense of wonder and respect. When we do this, our personal worries often shrink and our empathy grows. We realize that others have struggles and dreams as significant as our own. We see beauty and complexity in places we used to ignore. Imagine standing at the shore of the ocean at night looking up at a sky full of stars. In that moment, your own life might feel small, but not in a bad way. The vastness of the world and the cosmos can make our personal problems feel lighter, more manageable. It can also inspire us. We are part of this great universe, and there is so much to learn and care about beyond the boundaries of our own mind. Thinking deeply of the world can mean listening intently when someone else speaks, really trying to understand their perspective instead of being absorbed in what we will say next. It can mean walking in nature and appreciating how everything from the tallest tree to the tiniest insect has its place and purpose. It can mean pondering the lessons of history or the patterns of society to better grasp how and why things happen. All of these practices expand our awareness beyond me and mine. There is a gentle relief in not always focusing on ourselves. When we release the constant self-critique or self-importance, we find room to breathe and to grow. Our minds and hearts become open fields instead of cramped rooms. We become more resilient because our identity isn't tied up in every little success or failure. We can serve others more naturally because we see their needs and not just our own. Musashi, as a renowned swordsman, could have been arrogant, yet he advises humility. He understood that no matter how skilled or wise we become, we are still just a single person in a vast world. By keeping that perspective, we remain grounded. The world is rich in deep philosophies, people, nature, art, an endless source of insight. The more deeply we look into it, the more we understand our true place and the more gratitude and awe we feel. So think lightly of yourself. Be humble. Be forgiving of your own flaws. Carry your ego lightly, like a small bag rather than a heavy suitcase. And think deeply of the world. Be curious. Be attentive. Let the wonders and lessons around you fill your mind. This balance will guide you to live not as a self-centered island, but as a connected, thoughtful being. In doing so, you may find that many personal sorrows lift, and a sense of connection and meaning takes their place. In summary, Musashi's fourth principle frees us from the prison of self-absorption and opens us to the wisdom all around. With a light self and a deep world, we walk more gently and see more clearly. Continuing the theme of freedom from cravings, Musashi's fifth principle is be detached from desire your whole life long. This does not mean we should have no dreams or goals. Rather, it encourages us not to let desire control us or cause us endless dissatisfaction. To be detached from desire is to hold our wants gently without letting them grip our hearts too tightly. Desire is a natural part of being human. We desire love, success, safety, recognition. These things can motivate us to act and improve ourselves. But if we become too attached to any desire, we start to suffer. Our happiness becomes dependent on getting what we want, and our fear of not getting it grows. We become like a puppet with our strings pulled by the object of our craving. Musashi learned through years of discipline that inner peace comes from loosening these strings. Imagine reaching for something you really want. If your fist closes too tightly around it, you risk crushing it or hurting yourself with the tension. If you hold it with an open hand, you can enjoy it when it's there and let it go when it must go. Detachment means appreciating life's gifts without clinging to them. Being detached from desire means that whether or not life goes as you hope, you remain centered. If you achieve your goal, you enjoy it gracefully without becoming arrogant or overly dependent on it for your self-worth. If you fail to achieve it, you feel the disappointment, but it does not shatter you because you are not wholly depending on that outcome for your happiness. In this way, you stay balanced through life's ups and downs. Consider the rising and falling of the tide. If your contentment is attached to the wave being high, you'll be distressed when it recedes. But if you detach from that desire, you can appreciate the ocean in both its ebb and flow. When the tide is out, you explore the shore. When it comes in, you enjoy the water. Either way, you remain at peace. In practical terms, detaching from desires might mean practicing gratitude for what you have now, instead of constantly fixating on what you lack. It might mean setting your goals and working toward them, but not tying your entire self-worth or happiness to their fulfillment. You do your best and then accept whatever comes. This doesn't dampen ambition. In fact, it can make you more effective because you are not paralyzed by fear of failure or overly elated by success. You remain steady and clear-minded. Think of an actor who auditions for a role. If she desires the part too desperately, she might be consumed by anxiety and unable to perform at her best. And if she doesn't get it, she might be crushed. But if she cares and gives her all, yet stays detached from the final decision, she'll handle the outcome with grace. If she wins the role, she celebrates and then focuses on doing the work. If she doesn't, she can move on without devastation, trusting that another opportunity will come. Detach from desire also applies to everyday cravings, the craving for approval, for material possessions, for status. Each time we find ourselves restless because we want something so badly, a new promotion, a person's attention, a shiny new gadget, we can gently remind ourselves to loosen that hold. It doesn't mean we stop wanting or stop enjoying life's pleasures. It means we don't allow our peace and happiness to hinge entirely on obtaining them. Musashi's lifetime of battles taught him that desire for victory, for survival, had to be balanced with a calm acceptance. He trained to fight without letting the desire to win cloud his judgment. If one is too eager or too afraid to lose, that very desire can become a weakness to exploit. Similarly, in life, overly strong desire can blind us. A detached warrior stays focused and calm whether he's winning or losing. A detached person stays true to themselves, whether life currently brings favor or misfortune. To be detached from desire, your whole life long, is a lofty goal. We will all become attached many times in our lives. But each time we notice attachment causing us pain, we can practice letting go a little. With time, the habit of clinging loosens, and we find that we can love and strive and engage with life more freely, because we do so out of sincere choice, not desperate need. In detachment, there is great freedom. You walk through life with open hands. Joy and sorrow may visit, but neither owns you. You keep your balance on the moving deck of fate. Musashi promises that in cultivating this lifelong detachment, we discover an enduring serenity that cannot be taken away by the changing winds of circumstance. With desires in check, Musashi turns to how we carry our past. He advises, do not regret what you have done. Regret is a heavy chain that binds us to yesterday, preventing us from moving freely into tomorrow. Musashi's counsel is not telling us to be proud of our mistakes, but rather to not endlessly punish ourselves for them. Every person has moments in life they wish had gone differently, choices made in anger or ignorance, opportunities, missed words we wish we could take back. Feeling regret for a time is natural. It shows that we have a conscience and care about doing right. But Musashi invites us to acknowledge those feelings and then let them go. We must not live in regret. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with stones, each stone representing a past regret. If you carry it all the time, every step is harder and more painful. You cannot walk far or stand tall. To not regret what you have done is like setting that heavy pack down. You acknowledge it was there, perhaps take out each stone, examine what you learned from it, and then leave it by the roadside. You continue your journey lighter and wiser. This principle doesn't mean to never apologize or never feel remorse. If we have wronged someone, we should seek to make it right. If we have made mistakes, we should learn from them to avoid repeating them. But once we have done what we can to correct or learn, we should not torment ourselves with endless regret. There is a difference between learning from the past and living in the past. Musashi urges the former, not the latter. Holding on to regret is like trying to rewrite history in our minds, an impossible task that only brings sorrow. We replay scenes imagining if only we had acted differently. But no amount of mental replay can change what has already happened. All we can change is what we do now and tomorrow, when we accept that we free ourselves from the trap of regret. Consider forgiving yourself as you would forgive a dear friend. If a friend confessed to you a mistake they deeply regret, you might tell them, I understand you feel bad, but you have grown from it. You are not defined by that one moment. Let it go and strive to do better. We deserve to offer ourselves that same compassion. We are all imperfect, learning as we go. Musashi, reflecting at the end of his life, must have faced his own regrets. He fought many duels, he took lives, and likely had personal failings. Yet he saw the futility of dwelling on them. Regret, if held on to, becomes self-indulgent pain. It doesn't help those we hurt, nor does it right any wrongs. It only saps our strength to do good now. So he counsels to release regret after we have gleaned its lesson. In practicing this, think of something you regret. Acknowledge your responsibility, feel any sadness or remorse fully, then take a slow, deep breath. And on the exhale, imagine the regret loosening and drifting away, like a dark cloud being carried off by the wind. You remain still here, able to act, to make amends if needed, or to simply choose differently in the future. The cloud of regret passes, and the sky of the present moment is clear for the sun to shine through. Without the weight of regret, we find that our past does not shackle us. We can move forward with a lighter step. Our experiences, even the painful ones, become gentle teachers rather than punishers. We may even feel gratitude for the lessons learned, however hard won, because they guide us toward wisdom. Musashi's teaching to not regret what is done is ultimately about mercy, mercy towards oneself. It reminds us that life is a flowing river, not a still pond. We must keep flowing forward. We honor the past by learning from it, but we honor our present and future by not staying chained to what cannot be changed. In that way, we continue to grow stronger and kinder with each day, unburdened by yesterday's sorrows. Next, Musashi gives a short but powerful admonition. Never be jealous. Jealousy is a common human feeling. We see someone with something we desire. Success, love, possessions, talents, and we feel envy or bitterness that it is not ours. Musashi, in his wisdom, warns us against this emotion because of how poisonous it can be to our spirit. When jealousy takes hold, it is like a thorn in the heart. We not only suffer pain, we can also act out of that pain and harm our relationships. Jealousy can lead to resentment towards others or to a sense of inadequacy within ourselves. It blinds us to our own gifts and to the simple joys of life by constantly pointing out what we lack. To say never be jealous is perhaps asking the impossible. We might not be able to prevent the pang of envy from ever arising. But what Musashi means is that we should not nurture jealousy, not allow it to live in us. The moment we recognize jealous feelings, we should gently let them go like a hot coal we dare not hold. We can replace jealousy with admiration, inspiration, or simply focus back on gratitude for what we have. Consider that everyone's path is different. When we envy someone's success or happiness, we often see only the shining tip of their iceberg, not the struggles beneath the surface. If we knew their full story, we might not envy at all, or we would understand the price they paid for what they have. Instead of jealousy, we can choose empathy to be happy, for others' good fortune, and compassionate about their unseen burdens. This choice transforms jealousy into something positive, shared joy, or deeper understanding. Jealousy also underestimates our own potential. It says, I can't have that, or I'm not good enough to get that, and thus just seethes that someone else does. But a person detached from jealousy can instead think, if that is something truly worthwhile for me, I can work towards it. If not, I will let it go and pursue what is truly mine. In this way, another's success can motivate rather than embitter us, and another's beauty or talent can inspire or simply be appreciated without self-comparison. A practical way to combat jealousy is to turn it on its head by practicing appreciation. If you feel jealous of a friend's achievement, take a moment to sincerely congratulate them and reflect on what it took for them to get there. Shifting focus from what you don't have to what they accomplished can fill you with respect rather than envy. Likewise, when jealousy of someone's life creeps in, refocus on what is good in your own life. Count your blessings, however small. You might find that contentment returns as you acknowledge your own worth and fortunes. Never being jealous aligns with earlier principles of acceptance and thinking lightly of oneself. It means trusting the flow of your own life and not constantly measuring it against others. It means understanding that life is not a zero-sum game where someone else's happiness diminishes yours. There is enough fulfillment in the world for everyone, and each of us has our own unique journey to that fulfillment. Musashi likely saw jealousy among warriors, one swordsman envious of another's reputation or lord's favor. Such jealousy could lead to foolish challenges or distracted training. In our lives, jealousy may lead us to sabotage relationships or lose focus on our own path. By eliminating jealousy, we keep our mind clear and our heart free to focus on what truly matters to us. When you feel jealousy start to flicker within, acknowledge it without judgment. There is envy in me right now. Then gently dismiss it. Remind yourself what is meant for you will come in its own time, and what others have does not take away from your life. Wish others well and return your attention to your own road. In doing so, you maintain inner peace. Instead of bitter envy, your heart can cultivate kindness and confidence. You become content with what you have and optimistic about what you can achieve. Musashi's simple phrase, "never be jealous," is thus a key to a life of generosity, of spirit and self-assurance, where you celebrate others' light without feeling it diminishes your own. Musashi next speaks to the pain of loss, instructing never let yourself be saddened by a separation. At first glance, this may seem almost impossible. Who hasn't felt sadness when parted from a loved one or a cherished place? Musashi is not denying our human feelings of grief or longing. Rather, he is encouraging us not to remain drowned in that sorrow, to understand and accept that separations are a natural part of life. Everyone we love and everything we hold dear will eventually part from us, or we from them. This is a truth we all come to know. It might be a friend moving away, the end of a relationship, or the passing of someone we deeply care about. Sadness in those moments is natural and even healthy. It shows our love was real. Musashi himself, in giving away his possessions and preparing for death, was separating from all he knew. His point is that, while we inevitably feel sorrow, we should not let it permanently darken our spirit. Never let yourself be saddened means do not stay in sadness forever. Feel it, honor it, and then let the pain slowly wash through you and away. Clinging to sadness after a separation means we are still holding on to what is no longer there, much like holding on to a shadow. It can trap us in the past. Instead, Musashi implies we should cherish what was and move forward with life, carrying the love and lessons, but not the debilitating sorrow. Think of a beautiful sunset. For a short time, the sky is ablaze with color, and then the light fades into night. If we become heartbroken at the sun's departure, we miss the gentle beauty of the stars that come out. Similarly, when someone's chapter in our life ends, we can honor that time as something beautiful that has now transitioned. The night of loss will be there for a time, but new stars, new connections, new strengths, even new joys will eventually appear if we allow ourselves to look for them. One way to practice not being overly saddened by separation is to focus on gratitude. Instead of fixating on the pain of loss, shift attention to the gift of having had that person or experience in your life. For example, if a dear friend moves away rather than drown in loneliness, remember the good times you shared and be grateful that you had a friendship that is worth missing. Then channel that gratitude into staying connected across distance or into opening your heart to new friendships nearby. When a loved one passes away, grief is natural, and one should never feel ashamed to mourn. Musashi's principle is not to forbid tears, but to guide us eventually back to acceptance. Over time, we find that our loved one lives on in our memories and in who we have become because of them. Instead of our life energy draining away in endless sadness, we celebrate their life by living ours, fully knowing that's what they would want. Musashi's own path was that of a warrior who could not afford to be paralyzed by grief. He likely lost comrades or mentors and had to continue his journey alone. He learned that everything in this world is transient. When we accept the truth deeply, separations, while sad, become less shocking. We see them as part of the natural order. A meeting carries within it the seed of a farewell someday. This understanding can make every moment with those we love even more precious, and when separation comes, we bow to it as a part of life's flow. To never let yourself be saddened is to be strong in the face of impermanence. It does not mean you feel no sorrow. It means you do not yield to sorrow completely or eternally. You let sorrow touch you, and then you let it pass through. You remember that life continues, and there are new experiences to embrace, and other people who need your love and attention now. If you find yourself heartbroken from a separation, give yourself compassion. Allow yourself to heal at your own pace, but keep Musashi's wisdom in your heart. Do not let that sadness become your permanent home. Little by little step back into the world of the living. Engage with what is still here and what is yet to come. In time, the pain lessens, and you carry forward the best of what you lost. Inside you love, memories, wisdom, without being weighed down by grief. This is not just a Stoic ideal. It's a healing journey. It frees you to love again, to hope again, and to find meaning beyond the loss. That is what Musashi encourages, to feel the sorrow of separation, but never to let it strip away the possibility of future happiness. Life has many chapters. Do not get stuck on the page that has already turned. Now, Musashi speaks against two close companions of negativity. Resentment and complaint are appropriate neither for oneself nor others. In plain terms, holding on to resentment or indulging in constant complaining serves no good for you or anyone else. These habits only deepen misery and spread it to others. Resentment is like a slow poison we drink hoping to hurt someone else. We might resent someone who harmed us or resent life for not going our way. But that bitterness lives inside us, doing more harm to the vessel that carries it than to the object of our anger. Complaining, on the other hand, is voicing discontent repeatedly about our circumstances, about other people, even about ourselves. It might provide a brief release of frustration, but it doesn't solve anything and often makes us feel worse, keeping us focused on the negative. Musashi's stern advice is that these responses are not fitting or useful for a person walking the path of wisdom. When he says they are appropriate, neither for oneself nor others, he means that indulging in resentment or complaint is not beneficial to your own character and well-being, nor is it kind or helpful to those around you. Imagine being around someone who constantly complains about everything, weatherwork, their aches and pains. That negativity can drag down the mood of everyone present. Now imagine being around someone who holds grudges and drips bitterness about people in their past. That too casts a dark shadow. We must strive not to be the source of that kind of darkness, neither in our own hearts, nor in how we affect others. What can we do instead? The opposite of resentment is forgiveness or release. And the opposite of complaint is either taking positive action or practicing acceptance. If something has been done to you that you find yourself resenting, consider if there's an action you can take to address it, or if it's out of your control. If you can fix it, fix it. If not, holding resentment only prolongs your pain. Let it go for your own peace. This doesn't mean you condone what happened. It means you refuse to let it continue hurting you. Forgiveness can be powerful. It's a gift you give yourself as much as to others, freeing you from the chains of past harm. If you find yourself complaining frequently, use it as a signal that something might need to change. Are you complaining about something you can change? Then perhaps it's time to change it or work towards a solution. Are you complaining about something you cannot change, like bad weather or a past event? Then perhaps it's an opportunity to practice acceptance and shift focus to something you can influence. By doing so, you turn complaints into either improvements or into surrendering that which you can't improve. Both paths lead out of the stagnant bog of complaining. There's also gratitude as a remedy. It's hard to complain and feel grateful at the same time. When you catch yourself about to complain, try to think of something you're thankful for in that moment, however small. This doesn't mean ignoring genuine issues, but it puts them in perspective. Gratitude is like a light that makes the shadows of complaint retreat. As for resentment, cultivating empathy can help dissolve it. Try to see the situation from the other person's perspective, or acknowledge that whoever hurt you has their own flaws and struggles. Sometimes this softens our anger. If we resent life itself, try to see if there were hidden blessings or lessons in the difficulties we've faced. Often, challenges make us stronger or wiser, and recognizing that can lessen our bitterness. Musashi likely knew that resentment and complaint waste precious time and energy. A warrior cannot afford to be weighed down by grudges or whining. They must focus on what is within their control and maintain a clear mind. Similarly, in life, our energy is better spent on understanding, solving, or moving on rather than stewing in negativity. The phrase "neither for oneself nor others" suggests a moral consideration too. When we voice constant complaints or radiate resentment, we influence those around us negatively. It's not fair to ourselves to wallow in that state, and it's not fair to inflict that gloom on others. Breaking this habit can make us more pleasant companions and also much happier individuals. So if you find resentment in your heart, tend to it as you would a wound. Clean it by acknowledging the hurt, apply forgiveness like a healing balm, and cover it with compassion. If you find complaints spilling from your lips, catch them and examine their root. Then either take action or let them go. In doing so, you preserve your inner peace and contribute goodness, or at least neutrality, to the world around you, rather than more negativity. By releasing resentment and quieting complaints, your mind becomes lighter and your heart softer. You begin to focus on solutions and acceptance, which brings a sense of empowerment and serenity. Musashi's principle here is a reminder that a peaceful life cannot grow in soil poisoned by bitterness. Pull out those weeds and you'll make room for contentment to take root. Musashi next warns, do not let yourself be guided by the feeling of lust or love. This principle might sound surprising, especially about love, which we often consider a noble emotion. But Musashi's advice, forged in a life of discipline, is to be cautious of any feeling, no matter how pleasant or compelling, that can lead us away from our path or make us lose our clarity. Lust is easier to understand. It is a raw desire that can cloud judgment. Many people have made mistakes when driven by lust alone, mistaking it for something more lasting or ignoring obvious dangers because of it. Musashi says, do not let lust lead you. Recognize it for what it is, a fleeting urge, a fire that flares up and can die down just as quickly. If you chase lust blindly, you might find yourself in entanglements or regrets that could have been avoided with a cooler head. Love, however, is something most of us cherish. Why would Musashi group love with lust as feelings not to be guided by? It's likely because even love in its more infatuated or attachment-heavy forms can lead a person to abandon reason, duty, or their own personal growth. A warrior in Musashi's time might lose his edge if he became too attached to family, or a lover, his concern for them might distract him or be used against him. In a more general sense, being guided by love could mean doing anything for the sake of love, even if it compromises your values or well-being. Think of someone who is so in love they ignore red flags in a relationship, or who sacrifices their own goals and friends entirely to please the beloved. Such love unchecked can be as blinding as lust. It can lead to unhealthy dependency or heartbreak if the love is not returned equally. Musashi's advice is to feel love, yes, but not to let it take over your guiding principles or sense of self. This principle doesn't mean do not love. It means keep love in balance with your sense of what is right and true. You can love deeply and loyally, but still not let that love make every decision for you. Maintain your honor, your duties, and your inner compass, even as you love. In practical terms, do not commit unethical acts just because you're infatuated. Do not forsake lifelong values or neglect responsibilities solely in the name of love or passion. For instance, if you love someone who asks you to betray a friend or abandon your dreams, being guided by love blindly might lead you to do it and later feel great remorse. If instead you temper love with wisdom, you might find a way to honor your love without sacrificing your integrity. True love in its healthiest form would not demand that you lose yourself or harm others. It's worth remembering that Musashi lived in different times. As a ronin, he embraced a solitary life that worked for him. Not all of us will choose such solitude. We may marry, have families, form deep bonds, and those can be some of life's greatest joys. Musashi is not condemning love, but reminding us to remain grounded, to not become so lost in love or lust that we stray from our own path or become blind to reality. In emotional healing terms, this can also be seen as a call to avoid codependency. When we tie our entire happiness or identity to another person, whether through lust or love, we can lose our balance. If that person leaves, or if the relationship turns toxic, we might find ourselves broken because we had let that feeling guide us completely. Maintaining a sense of self. Some detachment even in love ensures that you can still stand strong no matter what happens. Lust and love are powerful emotions, and Musashi's principle invites us to honor their power, but not be ruled by them. Feel love, express love, enjoy love, but also step back at times to see the bigger picture. Are you still on your path? Are you still true to yourself and your principles? Are you making choices with clear vision? If yes, then love is in its rightful place. If not, gently correct course. Likewise, enjoy the pleasures of companionship and intimacy, but don't let physical desire override your judgment or lead you into situations that go against your values or long-term well-being. Musashi's warning is ultimately about not giving up control of your life to any emotion, even one as celebrated as love. It is about integrating emotion with reason. When love or passion aligns with your values and purpose, it can be a beautiful guide. But when it tempts you away from them, be wary. In short, keep your heart open, but keep your eyes open too. Love, but love wisely. Desire, but do so consciously. Let your path be guided by a harmony of heart and mind, rather than by feeling alone. In this way, you honor both your capacity to love and your responsibility to stay true to yourself. After cautioning against being led astray by love or lust, Musashi presents a principle about impartiality and openness. In all things have no preferences. At first, this might sound odd. After all, everyone has preferences, whether it's a favorite food or a dream job. But what Musashi is teaching is to avoid being overly attached to specific outcomes or ways of doing things. It is a call to be adaptable, to not insist that life conform to our expectations in every instance. To have no preferences in this context means to approach life with equanimity. If you get what you like, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too. It doesn't mean you cannot enjoy one thing more than another. It means you try not to need it to be a certain way to be content. It's about cultivating a mind that remains undisturbed whether situations go one way or another. Consider how much stress comes from wanting things to be a very particular way. We might say, I can only work effectively if I have complete quiet, or I can only be happy if I live in that city, or the day is ruined if it rains because I prefer sun. Such preferences, when rigid, make us fragile. The moment life doesn't match our favored conditions, we become upset, dissatisfied, or less effective. Musashi suggests training yourself to be indifferent to the small stuff and even to many of the big arrangements so you remain balanced regardless of circumstances. This echoes the earlier principle of acceptance, but it goes further into even our minor likes and dislikes. For instance, if you're served a meal that's not what you would have chosen, instead of complaining or being unhappy, you eat it with grace and maybe even find enjoyment in it. If a plan changes and things don't go the way you preferred, you adapt and make the best of the new situation instead of lamenting the change. Having no preferences can also be understood as being open-minded. You don't rigidly prefer your own ideas or comfort zone all the time. You are willing to listen to others try new things and go with the flow. This openness can lead to discovering joys and opportunities you might have missed if you clung only to what you know or like. Some interpreters might say that this principle is about not playing favorites, not being biased or prejudiced. It's true that if you have no preference for one person over another unjustly, you treat people fairly and situations objectively. That is another positive aspect to engage with the world as it is, rather than through the lens of strong biases or favoritism. On a deeper level, no preferences is a form of non-attachment. It means your inner state doesn't depend on external conditions being just so. If you can be just as calm and engaged, whether you're in a bustling city or a quiet forest, whether you're praised or criticized, whether you're eating simple rice or gourmet sushi, then you have achieved a kind of freedom. You're not buffeted by every change in fortune or environment because you carry your peace and purpose within. Implementing this doesn't mean you become a passive, flavorless person with no opinions or desires. It means you hold those opinions lightly. You might think I would rather this or that, but if the opposite happens, you accept it easily. It's a training of the mind to reduce fussiness and the ego's excessive grip, the constant insistence that things must be a certain way for you to be happy. Musashi likely cultivated this attitude as a warrior who roamed and had to survive in various conditions. He could not afford to be picky. One day he might sleep in a castle guest room, another under a tree in the rain. If he had insisted on comfort or specific routines, he would have been miserable. Instead, by having no strong preferences, he remained content and focused wherever he found himself. For us, practicing this could be as simple as occasionally letting others decide things and being genuinely fine with their choice, or deliberately not indulging minor preferences to build flexibility, like taking a different route home than your favorite route, or listening to a music genre you don't usually choose. These small exercises can strengthen the muscle of adaptability, making it easier when life unpredictably demands we adapt. Ultimately, to have no preferences is to trust that whatever comes, we can handle it and even find value in it. It is to not constantly measure reality against an ideal of how it should be. Instead, we accept reality in its many forms. This gives us a quiet kind of power. The person who needs little and can accept much cannot be easily rattled or disappointed. Musashi's guidance here gently leads us towards inner freedom. We become more present because we're not always chasing the next preferred thing or resisting what's happening. We can experience life more fully as it is, with a balanced mind and a supple spirit ready for anything. Musashi continues the theme of not clinging, stating be indifferent where you live. In essence, he suggests that one should not be overly attached to or dependent on a specific location or dwelling. This principle may feel challenging. Many of us have strong attachments to our hometowns, our countries, or the comfort of our own house. But Musashi's point is that a wise and resilient person can find contentment anywhere, and doesn't let the accident of location govern their inner peace. To be indifferent to where you live means to carry your sense of home within you. Whether you are in a bustling city or a remote village, a grand mansion or a tiny hut, your peace and purpose remain the same. You don't believe that if only I lived there instead of here, I'd be happy. Instead, you adapt to your surroundings and make the best of them. There is a deep strength in this indifference. Life is unpredictable. Jobs, relationships, or other circumstances might force us to move or change our environment. If we are highly attached to one place, such changes can break us or cause great anxiety. But if we've cultivated a mindset of being at home wherever we are, then every new place becomes just another setting for our life's journey, not a loss of self. This doesn't mean you cannot have a favorite place or that you shouldn't plant roots. It means that at your core, you know you would be okay, even if those roots must be pulled up. It means you understand that external surroundings, while influencing comfort, do not dictate your happiness. You take your contentment with you like a trusted companion. Imagine a monk who can find serenity, whether on a mountain top or in a noisy marketplace, because he's learned that true calm comes from within. Or think of people who travel lightly through life, making any spot their temporary home with a few personal touches and a positive attitude. They don't waste time lamenting what a place lacks. They quickly find what it offers. If the new city doesn't have your favorite restaurant, maybe it has a beautiful park you can enjoy instead. If your new apartment is smaller, maybe it encourages you to own less and simplify, which can be freeing. Musashi himself wandered for much of his life. He could not afford to be sentimental about a particular province or house. He was at home on the road, in forests, temples, or wherever his path took him. For him, where you live was not a fixed concept. Today, we may not live as nomads, but even so, adopting a bit of this indifference can help us face changes, like moving to a new city for work or adjusting to a new country. Being indifferent to where you live also encourages you to look for the good wherever you are. Instead of comparing the present place to some ideal or to back home, you engage with what is around you here and now. You might discover friends, beauty, and opportunities that you'd miss if you were pining for elsewhere. Additionally, this principle teaches simplicity. When you're not overly attached to a place, you may also find you are less attached to the physical trappings of that place. You realize that your soul isn't anchored in a particular building or land. It's freer than that. This can lighten the heart. For example, if you know you could be content in a humble cottage, then you are not possessed by the anxiety of losing a big house, and you can enjoy the cottage life if it comes to that. Musashi's advice may not mean you must literally move around or never decorate your home. It's more about not letting the idea of home become a shackle. Home is wherever you are, alive and present. The whole world can be your home in a way, and you treat each place with respect and curiosity. So if you ever find yourself longing intensely for another place, or feeling that you cannot be happy until you return to somewhere or get to a dreamed location, remember Musashi's words. Try to cultivate a bit of indifference by focusing on the present environment and finding elements of it to appreciate. Remind yourself that peace comes from within, not from the street you live on. By doing this, you become adaptable and strong, like a tree that can grow in many soils. Your happiness does not depend on a particular patch of ground. Ultimately, being indifferent to where you live is another facet of freedom. You are free to live boldly, knowing that no matter where life takes you, you carry your true home. Inside your values, your wisdom, your capacity for joy. Place becomes a backdrop, not the source of your being. This mindset opens the world to you because you know you can step into the unknown and still find yourself at home. Musashi now turns to something very practical. Do not pursue the taste of good food. This principle advises against living for the pleasures of the palate. It doesn't mean you should never enjoy food or that you must eat blandly. Rather, it warns about the dangers of being too preoccupied with gastronomic pleasure. Food is necessary for life, and delicious food is one of life's delights. But if we pursue tasty food for its own sake, we risk overindulgence and distraction. Making pleasure our master, even in something as everyday as eating, can weaken our discipline and health. Musashi, known for his ascetic lifestyles, saw that a warrior must eat to nourish the body, not to entertain the tongue. In a modern context, this means we should let nutrition and sufficiency guide our eating rather than constantly chasing rich flavors or treats. Think about times when the craving for a certain treat took hold. Perhaps you went out of your way to get a fancy dessert or overate because it tasted so good only to feel uncomfortable or guilty after. Or consider how much time and money can be spent in search of gourmet experiences. There's nothing wrong with savoring a meal, but when the taste of good food becomes a primary pursuit, other aspects of life might be neglected, or harm can come to our well-being, like eating unhealthy foods just because they taste good in excess. Musashi's advice encourages simplicity in diet. If you can be content with simple, wholesome food, you build resilience and gratitude. When a special treat comes, you enjoy it deeply because it's rare, but you don't need such richness every day to be satisfied. This principle also fosters self-control. In a world where indulgence is easy, practicing restraint with food can strengthen your willpower and clarity. Moreover, not chasing tasty food aligns with caring for our body. Often, the tastiest food, sweets, rich fatty foods, excessive salts, are not the best for our health in large quantities. By not making them a constant goal, you naturally lean towards a more balanced diet that sustains you rather than sedates or stimulates you overly. You learn to appreciate the natural flavors of simple fare, a ripe fruit, a bowl of rice, fresh vegetables, and find satisfaction in them. This teaching also touches on gratitude and mindset. If we always seek something better tasting, we may become picky or dissatisfied with normal meals. But if we are not fixated on flavor, we find gratitude simply in having food to eat. Many people in the world have little choice in their meals. They eat what is available, and many go hungry. Musashi's perspective, likely influenced by times of scarcity and the need for focus, reminds us to be humble with food. Eat what you have without complaint, and do not let your appetite rule you. Another angle, the pursuit of exquisite food can become a distraction or even an addiction, much like any pleasure. It can pull us away from more meaningful pursuits. Time spent obsessing over fine dining might be time not spent on personal growth or helping others. By keeping food simple, we free mental and physical energy for other parts of life. Picture a scenario. You're on a journey or at work and only have a simple sandwich for lunch. If you have trained yourself not to chase luxurious tastes, that sandwich can be perfectly satisfying, and you move on with your day. But if you are someone who always needs something special, you might spend the break unhappy that you don't have a gourmet meal, thus spoiling your mood. Musashi wants us to avoid that pitfall. In practice, embracing this principle might mean practicing mindful eating and moderation. Enjoy flavors, but slowly and with presence. Recognize when you're eating just for the pleasant taste versus eating for nourishment or true hunger. Occasionally say no to a craving as an exercise in self-mastery. Or intentionally have a plain meal and notice that you survive just fine and perhaps feel lighter and clear-headed. Being content with simple food also symbolically implies being content with simple living. It's a stance against excessive luxury and for appreciating basics. When you're no longer chasing gourmet satisfaction, a bowl of rice can feel as fulfilling as a feast because you bring to it a contented mind. Musashi's life, often spent training in nature or traveling, required that kind of adaptability. We too can benefit from not tying our happiness to the flavor of our meals. We can find joy in eating to live in the company at the table, in the energy food gives us, rather than just the fleeting taste. So savor good food when it comes, but do not run after it. Let eating be a nourishing act more than an indulgent one. This way you maintain control over one of the most fundamental interactions with the world, what you take into your body. And through that control, you maintain your freedom and focus untempted by gluttony or endless cravings. Your body stays healthier, your mind clearer, and your spirit more at peace with what it has. Next, Musashi gives practical advice on material things. Do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. Over a lifetime, it's easy to accumulate objects, keepsakes, and clutter. This principle urges us to let go of items that no longer serve a purpose, rather than clinging to them out of habit or attachment. There is a lighter way of living that comes with releasing excess possessions. Every object we own takes up space not just in our home, but in our mind. It might need cleaning, maintaining, protecting, or it might simply sit there reminding us of the past. By holding on to what we don't need, we tether part of our energy to those things. Musashi suggests we free ourselves by decluttering our lives, keeping only what is truly necessary or meaningful in the present. This is essentially about non-attachment and efficiency. If something has served its purpose, we can be grateful for it and let it go. Think about a piece of clothing you never wear anymore, or an old tool you replaced with a better one, or stacks of papers and trinkets that just gather dust. These items often weigh on us more than we realize. They create visual and mental noise. By giving them away, selling or discarding them responsibly, we create space both physically and mentally. The act of not holding on is also symbolic of trusting life. Sometimes we hoard things because we fear. What if I need this someday? It's wise to be prepared, but clinging to too much just in case can lead to hoarding behaviors driven by fear. Musashi would rather have us keep our load, light, trusting that we can acquire or adapt to what we need when the time comes. After all, he gave away his possessions as he neared death, reflecting that he truly needed very little in the end. Letting go of unneeded possessions can also mean letting go of the past. We often keep objects out of sentimental attachment, even if they no longer have a use. There's value in memories, but the memories live in us, not necessarily in the objects. You can treasure the memory of a loved one without keeping every item they ever gave you. Perhaps choose a few meaningful mementos and let the rest go. This way, the few you keep actually stand out and remind you of that person more clearly instead of being lost in a clutter of stuff. On a practical level, clearing out the unneeded makes you more nimble. Moving houses becomes easier. Cleaning your space is quicker, and you feel a psychological lightness knowing you aren't weighed down by excess. Many people today find joy in minimalism, the intentional practice of owning fewer items and ensuring those items either serve a purpose or bring joy. Musashi was advocating a form of minimalism centuries ago. For a warrior, carrying too much is literally a burden that can slow you down. In life, burdensome possessions can also slow our pursuit of new opportunities or simply our day-to-day efficiency. One might worry, if I let go of this, will I regret it? It's possible to make mistakes in purging, but more often than not, once something is gone, we rarely truly need it. And the relief of having a tidy, uncluttered environment usually outweighs the occasional, "Oh, I might have used that after all." In any case, Musashi's principle invites us to err on the side of releasing rather than accumulating. Also, when we release things we don't need, they can serve others. That coat in the closet you haven't worn in years could keep someone else warm if donated. Those books you've outgrown might spark knowledge in another if passed on. So this principle isn't just about personal liberation, but also about the efficient flow of resources in the community. Holding on to something useless to you might deprive someone else of something useful. In emotional terms, getting rid of clutter often leads to a surprising emotional uplift. It's as if stagnant energy is cleared out. The space opens up room for new experiences, or sometimes it's just a calming emptiness that remains a clarity. So take inventory of your life. What possessions are you holding on to out of fear, nostalgia, or inertia? Musashi would encourage you to be honest. Do I truly need this? Does it serve my life as it is now? If not, perhaps it's time to let it go with gratitude. Doing so, bit by bit, can transform your living space into one that reflects who you are today and where you want to go, rather than a museum of who you were. Musashi's own commitment to this principle underscores the value he saw in traveling light through life. We come into the world empty-handed and we leave much the same. Clinging to piles of stuff in between often only weighs down the journey. By letting go of what's unnecessary, we gain freedom. Freedom to move, to change, to focus on what truly matters, like relationships, experiences, and personal growth. In practicing this, you honor the past, but don't get stuck in it. You equip yourself with what you need for the present and future, and you walk onward unencumbered, ready for whatever comes next. Musashi's 15th principle is about thinking for oneself. Do not act following customary beliefs. In simpler terms, don't do something just because that's the way it's always done or because everyone else does it. Musashi encourages a mindful evaluation of traditions and norms, adopting them only if they make sense to you and align with your own principles rather than out of blind habit or pressure. Every culture and society has customs, some harmless, some beneficial, and others may be outdated or misguided. If we follow all customary beliefs without question, we surrender our own judgment. We might continue practices that cause harm or hold us back simply because they are familiar. Musashi, ever the independent spirit, advises us to use our own reasoning and insight rather than uncritically conforming to the group. This principle is a call to authenticity and courage. It takes courage to deviate from the customary, because going against the grain can invite criticism or alienation. But Musashi suggests that true freedom and wisdom often require stepping outside what is customary. Many great innovations and positive changes in history came from people who did not act according to the conventional wisdom of their time. For personal growth, this means you shouldn't restrict your life to what others deem acceptable if it conflicts with your own inner voice. Perhaps your family expects you to pursue a certain career, or your community assumes certain things about how you should live, but your heart tells you otherwise. Acting just because it's expected, because it's customary, can lead to an inauthentic life. Instead, consider carefully, do these expected actions or beliefs resonate with my own understanding and values? If not, Musashi would say, dare to break away and follow your own way. This is not to say all traditions are bad. Traditions can hold deep wisdom or provide community connection. Musashi himself followed the way of the samurai to an extent. The point is to not follow blindly. Retain a critical mind. If a custom is good, you might still practice it, but out of conscious choice, not mere conditioning. If it's not, you have the freedom to let it go or change it. Musashi likely had to break from many customs himself. As a ronin, masterless samurai, he did not fit the traditional mold of a retainer serving a lord, yet he found his own path. He also developed his own style of swordsmanship instead of strictly adhering to an existing school. His life was an example of forging a unique way, guided by experience and practicality, rather than just doing what every other warrior did. In everyday life, customary beliefs could be anything from societal expectations. You must get married by a certain age, or success means owning a big house, to old superstitions or biases handed down through generations. If we never examine these, we might live someone else's script rather than our own. This can lead to inner conflict or a sense of living falsely, which is detrimental to emotional well-being. For emotional healing, shedding customary beliefs that limit us can be very powerful. For example, perhaps the customary belief in your environment is that expressing emotion is a sign of weakness. If you follow that blindly, you may bottle up feelings and suffer internally. By rejecting that custom and choosing a more honest emotional life, you pave your own healthier path. Or maybe the custom is to always put others first to the point of self-neglect. Questioning that might lead you to a more balanced self-care approach. To practice this principle, start by noticing what beliefs and actions you do just because everyone does it, or that's how I was taught. Ask yourself whether each aligns with your deeper values and whether it stands to reason. If you find a misalignment, consider what action feels truly right to you, even if it's unconventional. You need not rebel for rebellion's sake. The idea is to act from genuine understanding, not from automatic compliance. This might lead to simple changes like celebrating a holiday in your own meaningful way instead of the customary way, or larger ones like choosing a life path that's different from what your peers expect. As long as it comes from a place of reflection and integrity, you're honoring Musashi's advice. Of course, wisdom and caution apply. Not all customs should be thrown out. Some exist for good reason, for instance, customary manners that show respect or ethical guidelines. The goal is not anarchy, but authenticity. Musashi trusts us to discern which customs are beneficial and which are chains on our spirit. In freeing ourselves from the need to always fit in or do what has always been done, we gain a deeper understanding of who we really are. We also allow society to evolve because when individuals choose consciously rather than habitually, positive change becomes possible. So let your actions spring from your own thoughtful beliefs. Respect tradition, but do not be enslaved by it. Traditions and societal norms should serve us, not the other way around. By living in this manner, you walk your own path true to yourself, much like Musashi walked his alone if necessary, but in harmony with his own way. The next precept is framed for a warrior, but holds a broader lesson: do not collect weapons or practice with weapons beyond what is useful. For Musashi, this meant not accumulating an arsenal of swords, spears, and other arms just for the sake of it, and not training in every fighting style imaginable when a few would suffice. The underlying wisdom here is about efficiency focus and avoiding excess in preparation. In a literal sense, a samurai carrying more weapons than needed would be weighed down and distracted. Each weapon also requires maintenance and practice time. If you try to master too many, you might become a master of none. Musashi suggests honing the skills and tools that truly matter and discarding the superfluous. Applying this beyond literal weapons, consider weapons as tools or skills in our lives. It's tempting to keep buying new gadgets, new software, or to pick up every hobby or skill under the sun. But if we spread ourselves too thin, we don't truly excel at or fully utilize any of them. It can become a form of procrastination or avoidance, collecting gear or credentials instead of deeply mastering what we actually need. This principle advises us to know our purpose and equip ourselves appropriately, no more, no less. If you're a writer, for example, you might not need the fanciest writing apps and 15 different notebooks and pens. Perhaps a couple of reliable tools and, most importantly, consistent practice with them will serve you best. If you're getting into fitness, you don't need every piece of exercise equipment crowding your space. Maybe just a few versatile pieces and dedication in using them. There's also a caution against getting lost in preparation and accumulation. Some people spend so much time preparing, gathering more resources, more tools, more training beyond what's necessary, that they never actually face the battle or execute their plan. It's like someone who wants to start a business but keeps taking courses and reading endless books without ever launching. Musashi would remind us that at some point, preparation must give way to action, and too much preparation becomes a hindrance. Being selective in what we keep and practice also simplifies life, aligning with earlier points about possessions and focus. It means we are clear about what we are doing and why. If something isn't adding value to our mission, it becomes clutter. For a swordsman, an extra weapon he never uses is just extra weight. For us, maybe that's a second car we rarely drive, or a kitchen full of gadgets when we only cook basic meals, or social media accounts on every platform when we really only enjoy one. Each weapon or tool has a cost in attention and upkeep. This principle is also about not being swayed by vanity or the allure of accumulation. Sometimes people collect things, be it weapons, tools, certificates, books they won't read to feel prepared or accomplished. But Musashi points out that true strength and readiness come from mastery and sufficiency, not abundance. A warrior with one sword he has mastered is far more formidable than one with an array of weapons he barely knows how to use. In emotional terms, it suggests confidence and trust in oneself. You trust that what you have and know is enough to handle life's challenges, and you don't always need more to feel secure. You refine what you have instead of endlessly seeking new external solutions. To practice this in modern life, you might start by streamlining. Look at your arsenal of daily tools and commitments. Which ones truly serve you, which sit idle or just consume space and time. Then let go of the non-essentials and focus your energy on improving and fully utilizing the essentials. It's like pruning a tree so the remaining branches grow stronger and bear better fruit. For learning and self-improvement, it might mean choosing a few key areas to develop rather than scattering your efforts too widely. It encourages depth over breadth when breadth isn't necessary. Musashi's experience taught him what was useful and what wasn't through real encounters. We too can reflect on our experience. How often did I actually use this or that? Did learning that extra skill make a difference, or would my time have been better spent strengthening core skills? It's about honest evaluation of what yields results. By not collecting or practicing beyond what is useful, life becomes more focused, and ironically, creativity can flourish when it's not overwhelmed by options. With limited tools, we become inventive with what we have. With limited techniques, we learn to apply them in versatile ways. It's the mastery of fundamentals that often leads to excellence. In summary, Musashi advises efficiency: carry what you need, practice what is effective, and do not burden yourself with extraneous things or training that do not contribute to your goal. This keeps you agile, sharp, and ready instead of overloaded and diluted in your efforts. Now Musashi confronts a fundamental truth: do not fear death. This principle is a cornerstone of his Stoic and warrior philosophy, and it resonates with wisdom from many spiritual traditions as well. Death is the one certainty in life. By learning not to fear it, we remove a great shadow that can hover over our lives. To not fear death is to accept the inevitable. It's not a morbid fixation on dying, but rather a freedom that comes from acknowledging that death is a natural part of the life cycle for all of us. When we truly accept that everything will die, including me, it can paradoxically bring a profound sense of peace and even an urgency to live fully. Fear of death often lurks behind many lesser fears. It can keep us from taking risks, from embracing change, or even from forming deep bonds because we fear losing those we love. If you remove that ultimate fear, many other fears shrink or vanish. The warrior on the battlefield who has accepted the possibility of his own death fights with a clear mind and without hesitation. Similarly, in everyday life, a person who has made peace with mortality can approach challenges and experiences with a boldness and honesty that others might lack. This principle doesn't mean courting death or being reckless with life. In fact, not fearing death can make life more precious. If you're not in denial about death, you might treasure your days more and not waste time on trivial or dishonorable things. Knowing that our time is limited encourages us to live according to our values, to say what needs to be said to love without reservation. Often the fear of death is really a fear that life is meaningless or incomplete. By facing death, we strive to make our lives meaningful each day. For emotional healing, confronting the fear of death is crucial. Many anxieties and deep sorrows stem from an unspoken dread of mortality. Musashi invites us to shine a light on that dark corner, to realize that death is not something to run from internally. It will come when it comes. In the meantime, fearing it only robs us of the joy and freedom we could have. One way to ease the fear of death is to reflect on how natural and universal it is. Just as a leaf falls from a tree in autumn, each living being eventually passes away. But life continues in other forms, and the impact of our actions and love can ripple even after we're gone. If one believes in an afterlife or spiritual continuation that can provide comfort, even without that belief, one can find solace in the idea that we become part of the natural world that nurtured us. Our bodies returning to Earth, our energy back to the cosmos. Musashi likely overcame fear of death through direct exposure to it. He survived over 60 duels and numerous battles, each time facing the possibility. Over time, he learned that fear itself was more crippling than the prospect of dying. Fear could make him hesitate or doubt. Letting go of fear allowed him to act fully in the moment. For us, while we may not face sword fights, we face the reality of aging and losing loved ones. We can gradually make peace with death by talking about it, by honoring those who have passed, and by living in such a way that if death came suddenly, we could say we have lived well without unfinished business or unspoken love. This connects back to no regrets. A life lived without regret and in accordance with one's values is a life easier to release when the time comes. If you compromise your values or leave important things unsaid, death feels scarier. But if you live each day as a complete chapter, learning, loving, giving your best, then death is simply the final page when it arrives. And the book of your life can be closed with a sense of wholeness. Meditation on mortality can be surprisingly uplifting. Practices like memento mori in Stoicism or Buddhist meditations on impermanence aim to strip death of its terror and use it as a teacher to illuminate life. They remind us that each moment is valuable precisely because it is not infinite. Instead of fear, we develop a respectful understanding death gives life its shape and urgency. When we do not fear death, an inner strength emerges. We become harder to manipulate or paralyze with threats. Our priorities clarify. Petty worries tend to fall away. We also often feel deeper compassion for others, knowing everyone shares this fate and everyone's time is precious. Embracing this principle might involve deep personal reflection. It might mean finding spiritual or philosophical understanding of what death means to you. But as you cultivate acceptance, you'll likely notice a weight lifting. The horizon of life expands when you no longer live under the shadow of its end. You can simply live moment to moment, doing your best and not clinging desperately to existence or safety. Musashi's voice would assure us death comes to all. Do not let the fear of it master you. With that assurance, we bow to the inevitability of death and then carry on living perhaps more vibrantly than before, since fear no longer holds our spirit hostage. In sum, by releasing the fear of death, we gain the freedom to truly live. Each day becomes a gift to be used well rather than an ordeal to endure in dread. Musashi's path to fearlessness can inspire us to find courage and serenity in the face of life's final mystery. Continuing the theme of facing life and death with freedom, Musashi says, "Do not seek to possess either goods or fiefs for your old age." In other words, don't accumulate wealth or property solely as a security blanket for your later years. This principle is about avoiding greed and excessive hoarding in the name of future comfort. It complements the idea of not fearing death. If you don't fear death, you also don't obsess over trying to guarantee a perfectly cushioned existence at life's end. Musashi observed that many people, as they age, become fixated on gathering as much wealth or land as possible to ensure a comfortable retirement or to leave a legacy. While it's natural to plan for the future, there is a line where prudent planning turns into an endless quest for more, driven by fear of hardship or by vanity. Musashi warns against crossing that line. He valued a life of simplicity and virtue over one of accumulated riches. If we constantly seek possessions for our old age, we might sacrifice the present moment or our integrity for a tomorrow that isn't guaranteed. We may work long hours or make compromises just to pile up wealth, telling ourselves one day I'll enjoy this. But often, that day never comes as imagined, or when it comes, we find no amount of goods can truly fill the spirit. Meanwhile, the years spent chasing accumulation are gone, perhaps, without the joys of simplicity, relationships, or inner peace. Also, an overemphasis on stockpiling for old age can be a symptom of underlying fear, the fear of poverty, the fear of being vulnerable. Musashi's ideal is to live with trust in oneself and the natural flow of life. That doesn't mean being irresponsible. It means not letting anxiety about the future make you miserly or overly cautious in the present. If we live wisely and take care of our true needs, we often require less than we think. When older, especially if we've cultivated inner wealth like wisdom, love, and community. Instead of amassing goods and lands, Musashi might suggest amassing wisdom, experiences, and good relationships. These are the treasures that truly nourish and comfort you in old age. You can't take estates and coin to the grave, but the contentment from a well-lived life will accompany you. This principle also encourages generosity rather than accumulating beyond need. If you have more than enough, now perhaps it's better to use it to help others or to enrich your life in meaningful ways rather than stacking up excessive surplus out of fear. Trust that you will have what you need when you need it, especially if you don't define happiness by luxury, as other principles teach. Then you won't cling so tightly to every penny or possession. In Musashi's era, fiefs, grants of land, and income were symbols of status and success for a samurai. Saying not to seek fiefs for old age is like saying, do not chase titles, territories, or high positions purely to secure a cushy retirement. A warrior might be tempted to curry favor or bend his values to earn a comfortable estate to settle on. Musashi instead lived as a wanderer with minimal possessions. He focused on mastery and teaching rather than on material legacy. For us, a translation might be, don't make saving for retirement the all-consuming focus of your life at the expense of living your life. By all means, save and plan wisely, but then live rather than hoard. You might find that modest means used well provide a fine life in old age, whereas all the riches in the world can't buy back lost time or a tarnished conscience. Emotionally letting go of an excessive need to secure the future fosters trust and reduces anxiety. It aligns with detachment. Do your best to be prepared, but then let go rather than obsess. It also fosters fairness. Someone who chases far more than they need for their old age might take more from the world than necessary, leaving less for others. Musashi's view encourages contentment with enough. Enough is a liberating concept beyond it. Extra goods become a burden or even a source of stress. Managing many properties or investments can become its own demanding occupation. So the teaching is, don't let fear of want in the future drive you to hoard in the present. Keep life lean and sufficient. Use your energy to live well and to cultivate your character, rather than solely to pad your bank account or property list. When you reach old age, what will matter is not how much stuff you've stored up, but how much life you've lived, how deeply you've loved and learned, and how gracefully you can accept life's final stage. Musashi's words free us from the common rat race mentality. They remind us that chasing security relentlessly can ironically make us feel less secure, because greed knows no end. But if we refuse to become slaves to that chase, we stay free and secure in a deeper way, secure in knowing we didn't compromise life's true meaning for an illusion of safety. Plan for the future, but don't live only for the future. Provide for your needs, but know what enough means. Don't bind your heart to possessions and titles, especially those meant for a time that is not now. In doing so, you maintain a light spirit and focus on living well, trusting that the same wisdom and resilience that guide you now will guide you in your later years too. For his 19th principle, Musashi bridges the spiritual and the practical respect, Buddha and the gods, without counting on their help. This means we should hold reverence for higher powers or spiritual truths, but not passively expect them to do the work for us. It's a call to personal responsibility, even in matters of faith. Musashi lived in a culture influenced by Buddhism and Shinto. Respect Buddha and the gods implies acknowledging the divine or sacred with humility and honor. He is not dismissing faith, indeed he likely paid respects at shrines or temples, but the key is without counting on their help. In other words, do not be lazy or fatalistic thinking that praying alone will solve your problems, or that fate will hand you what you want without your own effort. This echoes the wisdom God helps those who help themselves. Have faith, but act as though the outcome depends entirely on you. This approach prevents complacency. If you pray for success on an exam, you still must study. If you seek good health, you must live healthfully, not just offer incense. If you face hardship, ask the heavens for strength, but also muster your own strength and take steps to overcome it. For emotional well-being, this principle balances hope and agency. It's comforting to have faith that something greater is looking out for us, but it's empowering to know our choices and actions matter. Relying solely on external, even divine help can lead to helplessness or disappointment. Musashi's advice instills a sense of control. Do not just wait for a miracle. Be part of making your own miracle. Another way to see this is not to make devotion a transaction. Some people honor gods only to seek favors. Musashi implies that we should be sincere in our reverence, but not because we expect a reward or intervention. Do the right thing and honor the sacred, because it is right, not as a bargaining chip for divine assistance. For instance, you might pray for guidance or give thanks for blessings, but then you must go and do what needs doing with the talents and opportunities you've been given. If someone is ill, you can pray for their recovery, but also do everything in your power. Get medical help, provide care and comfort. To count on gods would be to simply sit back and assume they will fix everything. Musashi wants us to stand up and act even as we maintain our reverence. In a sense, this principle encourages a harmonious partnership between the human and the divine. If success comes, you might credit both grace and your hard work. If success doesn't come, you don't blame the gods, since you weren't merely expecting them to intervene, and you don't lose faith because you understand the god's role was never to live your life for you. Your faith remains intact because you never assumed divine intervention was owed. You did your part, and you accept whatever comes. It's also about accountability. When we take action, instead of waiting passively, we often discover strength and solutions we didn't know we had. If we always wait to be saved, even by God, we stay in a childlike dependence. Musashi wants us to be mature warriors of life, respectful of the mystery Buddha, the god's fate, but fully accountable for our own journey. Practically, this might mean pray or hope for the best, but prepare for the worst and get to work. Honor your spiritual practices, but if something isn't going right in life, don't just say it's God's will and do nothing. Look at what you can change or improve. By following this principle, you cultivate both humility and initiative. Humility because you acknowledge forces greater than yourself. Initiative because you also acknowledge that effort is required from you. You become someone who trusts the process of the universe, yet still rolls up your sleeves to steer your own fate. So if you light incense to Buddha, do so with a clear mind and a respectful heart, but then go live out Buddha's teachings actively. If you pray to God for guidance, listen quietly for wisdom, but then rise and carry out those good intentions through your deeds, not assuming a divine hand will carry you without your own footsteps. This balanced approach gives great inner strength. You are never alone because you have faith, but you also trust yourself and commit to action. Musashi found power in that balance, and we can too, moving through life with both reverence and resolve. In the 20th principle, Musashi declares you may abandon your own body, but you must preserve your honor. This stark statement encapsulates the samurai code, place integrity above even life itself. In essence, one should be willing to sacrifice their physical self, endure pain, hardship, even death before sacrificing their principles, honor, or good name. For Musashi, living dishonorably through cowardice, deceit, betrayal, or shameful acts was worse than dying. The body is mortal and will perish eventually, but honor the legacy of your character and actions can live on, and more importantly, it defines the quality of your life while you are alive. If you compromise your honor, in a sense, you have lost your true self, even if your body survives. In modern terms, this means never do something that violates your deepest morals just to save yourself or gain something worldly. Don't lie or cheat to avoid punishment. Don't harm an innocent person to save your own skin. Don't abandon your values for money or under threat. It's a high standard and can be tested in extreme ways, but Musashi challenges us to hold integrity as non-negotiable. Preserving honor means acting in a way that you can be proud of, or at least not ashamed of, even when circumstances are dire. If faced with a choice between doing what's right and staying safe or comfortable, choose what's right. This principle fosters profound self-respect. It also earns the respect of others. Someone known to hold on to their honor under pressure is someone others will trust deeply. There's an element of legacy here, too. Musashi might say your honor is you, and it outlasts your body in the memory of others. We honor Musashi today, not for his body long gone, but for his principles and writings. Similarly, what will people recall of us? Likely how we treated others and stood by our values, our honor. That is worth more than any physical safety or comfort. This principle ties in with not fearing death, Principle 17, because if you don't fear death, you can act honorably, even when your life is at stake. It ties with not having regrets, 6, and not being led by lust or love. 10, because many regrets and morale failings come from betraying our honor for short-term desires or out of fear. In a way, it's the capstone of all the principles. If you live by them, you will naturally value honor above your body. Abandon your body can also mean enduring hardship or discomfort. It doesn't literally always mean dying. It could mean suffering injury, losing wealth, or enduring humiliation, rather than doing something dishonorable. It's like saying better to sleep on cold ground with honor than in a warm bed obtained through dishonor. Better to lose a job upholding the truth than keep it by doing wrong. Musashi's time had the ultimate expression of this principle in seppuku ritual suicide to avoid living with shame. We don't face that scenario, but we can embrace the spirit, hold your principles so dearly that you'd sooner face great personal cost than violate them. This is emotionally empowering. It clarifies priorities. When you must preserve honor, tough decisions become clearer, if not easier. You also live free of deep shame. Preserving honor might bring hardship now, but it saves you from guilt and self-contempt in the long run. Preserving honor isn't about preserving ego or avoiding every failure. It's not stubborn pride. In fact, sometimes honor means admitting you were wrong or apologizing. That can be the honorable thing. It's about the core of right and wrong. One might abandon the body by swallowing pride or facing punishment if honesty requires it, thus preserving the honor of truthfulness. Think about what honor means to you. Perhaps honesty, loyalty, fairness, courage. Those are the things to never surrender. If life tests you through temptation or fear, Musashi's words urge you to bear any physical or immediate consequence, but do not betray those values. Living this way brings a deep peace. You know yourself. You know what lines you will not cross. It simplifies moral choices, though not necessarily making them easy. It also inspires others. Someone who lives with such honor can become a beacon for those around them. By preserving your honor above all, you ensure that even when your story ends, it's remembered with respect. Musashi sees honor as the real treasure, far more valuable than the body, which is transient. It's part of the way he speaks of you. Carry your honor. On that way, even if you sometimes walk it alone or at great cost. In the end, it's what makes your life truly your own and truly worthy. The 21st and final principle is a fitting conclusion: never stray from the way. The way refers to the path Musashi has laid out, the path of truth, discipline, and wisdom embodied in these principles. It also means one's personal path of purpose and virtue. Musashi is urging us to remain steadfast and consistent, to not abandon these principles when life challenges us or when easier temptations glimmer. After sharing 20 guidelines, he ends by saying, in essence, live by these always. It's a reminder that practicing these precepts is not a one-time effort, but a lifelong journey. There will be moments of doubt, hardship, or seduction when straying from the way seems easier or more attractive. But Musashi asks us to commit to persevere, to make this way of integrity our permanent course. Never stray from the way is about loyalty to your values and path. It's normal to stumble or falter. We are human, but the idea is to always return, always keep your compass set to true north. If you slip into jealousy or anger, recall these principles and regain your balance. If you find yourself chasing a material comfort at the expense of virtue, remember the way and correct your course. The way is not lost as long as you step back onto it. It also implies devotion and focus. Often, people start on a path of self-improvement or spirituality with enthusiasm, but lose momentum. Musashi's final advice is to maintain your dedication through all seasons of life. Circumstances will change, years will pass, but these truths remain guides. By not straying, you cultivate a deep stability of character. You become someone who can be counted on to act with integrity, who doesn't give up their principles when they become inconvenient. The way can also be personal. Each person may have their own way, their unique vocation or mission, so long as it aligns with truth and virtue. Musashi might be saying, once you've found a true path, a life in harmony with these values, do not abandon it. Stay focused on your purpose and moral compass. This final teaching wraps up the emotional and philosophical journey of the Dokodo. After learning about acceptance, desire, emotion, humility, detachment, fearlessness, and honor, we are told to carry these lessons with us always. In doing so, one can face anything. Never stray from the way provides a sense of continuity. Even as Musashi himself left this world, the way persists for those who follow. It is a path one often walks alone in terms of personal responsibility, yet one walked in the light of wisdom shared by many seekers. In a poetic sense, imagine Musashi finishing the scroll, rolling it up, and handing it to his disciple with a solemn gaze. His final words are, "Keep to this path. Whether the world around you is chaotic or calm, whether others understand your journey or not, remain true to it." It's both a command and an encouragement. Musashi believed that such steadfastness leads to a life of fulfillment and a death without regret. As we contemplate all 21 principles, this last one reverberates like a clear bell through each of them. It reminds us that the journey is not a short sprint, but a lifelong marathon. There will be easy days when following these precepts feels natural and rewarding, and hard days when it would be tempting to ignore them. Never Stray tells us that it's in those hard moments that it's most important to stay true. By committing not to stray, you gradually embody the way. Over time, these principles become not just things you practice, but part of who you are. Accepting reality, controlling pleasure, acting with clarity, practicing humility, letting go of desires, facing fear, holding on to honor, all these shape your character. And a character forged on this way can navigate life's storms with a calm center. In practicing, never stray from the way, you also learn to forgive yourself for past mistakes. and simply keep going. The way is always beneath your feet as soon as you choose to walk on it again. That is hopeful. No matter how far one might have wandered, one can always return to the way by deciding to do so now. So as we end this journey through Musashi's teachings, we hold this final charge in our hearts: walk your path with unwavering dedication. Let these principles be your compass and your refuge. Life will present detours and trials, but the way of walking alone, true to yourself, disciplined and compassionate, will always guide you back to the road of truth. Never stray from it, and you will live and die as a true warrior of your own life with peace in your heart. As the last line is written, Musashi's brush comes to a rest. In the silence of that moment, these 21 principles glow with a timeless life. They are more than words on a page. They are the distilled spirit of a man who sought meaning beyond victory, who found wisdom in walking alone. We imagine him rolling up the scroll and handing it to his disciple with a steady gaze. The candlelight flickers, and in that gentle light, we see not just an old samurai, but a wise guide offering us his life's truths. We too sit quietly in the dim light, now holding Musashi's teachings in our heart. Each principle is a gentle bell ringing deep within our conscience. Accept reality, let go of excess, be fearless, be honorable. These are not quick fixes, but companions for a lifetime of growth. We let them wash over us slowly, feeling both challenged and comforted by their presence. In our mind's eye, we bow in gratitude to Musashi for sharing these final gifts. Outside, the night has deepened, but we feel a light within, a resolve to live more truthfully and courageously. This path of walking alone is not lonely at all. It is filled with connection to the very essence of life and with the quiet strength we discover in ourselves along the way. Rising from this meditation, we carry the scroll of the Dokodo in the chambers of our soul. We know the journey ahead won't always be easy, but we have a map now drawn in wisdom and paid for by Musashi's own trials. Step by step, day by day, we will strive to follow this way. When we falter, we will remember the calm presence of the lone swordsman encouraging us to return to the path. When we despair, we will recall his unwavering spirit and find the courage to continue. With a final deep breath, we step forward resolved, as Musashi was, to walk this path of aloneness, which in truth leads us to profound connection with our own humanity. We walk with acceptance, with purpose, with an open heart and an unyielding honor. In this way, we honor Musashi's legacy, and more importantly, we honor the best within ourselves. The way lies open before us. We shall not stray from it.